The Darrell Brooks trial. Will there be a major twist of events coming in the future in this trial? This trial is not over yet, but will Darrell Brooks, my question to you, will Darrell Brooks do something in this trial to ultimately delay this trial? And I feel like it's coming. Now, I'm going to explain why I say that. But first, I just want to say I've watched many trials before, and this is the first trial where a defendant is representing himself and he's claiming sovereignty. And not only is he claiming that he's a sovereign citizen, he's really arguing his case and going back and forth with the judge. This is the first time, and like I said, he fired his public defenders. This is like a first for me, and I've watched many trials before on YouTube. And I must say, this trial is very, very, very unique. And I feel like he's doing stall tactics. I feel like he's trying to delay the inevitable, which is a guilty verdict, because it's not a matter of whether he's innocent or not. I think the evidence speaks for itself. There's plenty of people that have placed him at the scene of the crime. But will Darrell Brooks do something to delay this trial on technicality? What do you think? Will Darrell Brooks call the prosecutors to the witness stand? Now, this was a question that in the last live chat, I think we covered, but that's my question. Do you think that he can call the prosecutors to the witness stand? Now, remember, he keep asking who the plaintiff is. He keeps saying the plaintiff. Do you know who the plaintiff is? Did the plaintiff reach out to you? Who is the plaintiff? Now, the plaintiff is the state. Now, him being sovereign, he thinks that the state doesn't have jurisdiction over his case. That's why he keeps arguing that. In his mind, he's setting himself up for the appeals process, which in my opinion, and I'm not a legal expert, but this is my opinion, is going to fall on deaf ears. They just don't recognize the sovereignty. They don't recognize it. Now, can he call the prosecutors? Because remember, he wanted to subpoena the state. Now, the prosecutors are working for the state, and the state is representing the injured party. But Darrell Brooks had questioned the judge. He said, how can the state be the injured party when they're not human? It's an entity. So I'm thinking he may try to call the prosecutors to the witness stand. What do you think about that? You think it can be done? Well, I looked around, I checked around the internet, and it actually can be done. Now, it's kind of looked upon kind of strange, but in fact, he can call the prosecutors to the stand. Now, if we have some legal experts or a lawyer, please comment below in this video just to confirm this. Now, let me just read this little passage here. It says it's jurisdiction dependent, but technically yes. However, it is highly unfavored and rare. If a defense attorney wishes to call a prosecutor, notice must be given long before that happens. The notice must be looked upon with skepticism. A witness generally has to have personal knowledge about the facts that they are going to testify upon, and the prosecutor is rarely going to have any personal knowledge as a witness about the subject matter of the case. Are there exceptions? Sure, it can happen. Further, it potentially invokes ethical issues on either side. So, technically, they can take the witness stand, but do they have any prior knowledge of the events that took place that led to Darrell Brooks being in trial in the first place? Technically, no, they were not there. I could see if one of the prosecutors were actually there, but they're not there. They're representing the injured party. They work for the state. They represent the injured party. So you see how this can be an argument in court. And I honestly believe Darrell Brooks is going to bring this up because he keep requesting that the state be subpoenaed to testify. Remember, he said that he had 13 witnesses. I believe the 13th is the state, because he wants to call the state in because they brought on this case. In his mind, the injured party didn't bring on the case, the state did. So he's thinking, how can the state even bring a case against them? Now, I read something here. It says this actually can and does happen. Say one prosecutor conducts an interrogation on a suspect, they can be called as a witness as to the statement. This is why we often interrogate the perpetrator for the people's cases, so that they can possibly be called as a witness on their own case. But absent that highly specific scenario, no, the prosecutor is not the witness to the crime, so therefore they cannot be called to testify. Okay, so I gave you that right there. So in some cases, let's say if the prosecutor interrogated, was a part of the interrogation process on Darrell Brooks, sure, he can question him. But the thing is, did this happen in this case? I don't think so. So I honestly believe possibly the judge is going to rule against that. I'm just putting it out there, just asking the question, can he call any one of the prosecutors to the stand to question, because he keeps saying that I want to subpoena the state. So I'm just thinking that no, that's actually not going to happen. I'm thinking the judge is pretty thorough in this case. I think that the judge is doing a really good job, and I honestly think she's probably going to rule against it. Because again, in his mind, he thinks, how can the state be the injured party? The state represents the injured party. But see, his interpretation of the law is king. That's what he thinks. And nothing else matters. That's why you see constant back and forth in the courtroom. Now look for Darrell Brooks to try to stall this case and take the stand in his own behalf. Now, can he actually take the stand in his own behalf and question himself? Now, that can be done. Now, the judge may require the defendant to use a question and answer format. Every appellate case I could find affirmed that the trial judge authority to require the defendant to testify in question and answer format. This most cites a case, United States versus Navica 887 F.2D 110, First Circuit 1989, where the trial judge told the defendant that if he chooses to represent himself and to testify, you have to ask yourself questions. You have to say, Mr. Wellington, what is your name? And then say your name, Mark Wellington. Now, you know, in this case, Darrell Brooks don't want to be known as Darrell Brooks. You cannot get on the stand and simply narrate your story. The reviewing court noted that this procedure was cumbersome, but not so unwidely, that is constructively deprived if the defendant of his right to testify in his own defense. See also State versus Curley, 2016 WL 2596 404. So definitely it would have to be, they will have to decide on that. It would have to be some type of question and answer format. So it will have to be structured if he decide to take that witness stand. So that answered my question there. You see, in closing, I love following these trials because I learned something from each trial. Each trial I learned something. I take something away from each trial. And for those that are watching this trial for the first time, you might be from that particular city and it's the first time you're watching a trial because you're curious on how it's going to go. I encourage you to watch a few more trials in the Law and Crime Network. You will actually learn a lot about the law from each case. Each case is not the same. It's always different because why? There are different parties in each case. So it's not always cut and dry the same. But yeah, I just wanted to say that about Darrell Brooks. This is a very interesting trial, and I think that a stall is coming. I think he's going to try to do something, pull something out of the rabbit hat to try to stall this case, and we'll see. And it may have something to do with the prosecutors taking a stand. I don't know. I'm just guessing. What say you? Drop a comment below. Take care.